This video today is going to be about some basic music theory and how to approach music when first given. I'm going to talk about how to read scores. I'm going to go over treble and bass clef as well as alto clef. I'm going to put a disclaimer here. There are different notations for band instruments, but since I do not play any, I haven't learned these specific notations, but I am willing to try to learn. Let's get into how to read treble clef first, and I'm going to talk about bass clef because these two are quite common in most instruments. So unfortunately, in order to read these weird symbols, you are going to need to know a little bit of the alphabet. Just a quick rundown of the notes that you're going to need to know: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and of course C. So how I was taught to remember this symbol is that it's supposed to be like a fancy G, and so the middle of it is supposed to represent the note G. We're going to start by learning the notes on the lines, and so these notes are E, G, B, D, and F. In order to better remember this, we can use the acronym Every Good Boy Deserves Fudge. If you have an acronym that you think would better help you remember this, then go ahead and use that, but this is just an example for you. Now we're going to learn the note names of the spaces, and so this is F, A, C, and E. And how you can remember that is face rhymes with space. I do not think that people use an acronym for the spaces, so you can just remember it face from bottom to top. So now we are going to talk about bass clef, and I can't really think of like what it's supposed to resemble. I don't know. Anyways, I always end up drawing it backwards. And so this one, we're going to do lines again. So this is G, B, D, F, and A. We are sticking with the good boy theme here. So we're going to do good boys deserve, forgive my writing, deserve food. I'm going to change this to fudge because I think that since we did fudge for treble clef, we might as well do fudge for this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and change it. And the top one is always. Next, we are going to go ahead and do the spaces. So the first letter is A. Did I mention that I'm really bad at reading bass clef? Yeah. So the first letter is A, C, E, and G. And so the one that I saw online for this is all cows eat grass. And so as I said with treble clef, if you find an acronym that works for you better, then you go ahead and do that. But this is another one that I liked. Good burritos don't fall apart. I'm not going to throw shade, but I'm also going to throw shade. And I'm going to let you figure out who I'm throwing shade at. Now, if you've never heard of alto clef, I don't blame you. Most of us haven't. And most of us probably haven't even heard of the instrument that uses alto clef. I'm really sorry. I had to join the viola jokes. Yes, violas use alto clef, and so we're going to dive into that because this is part of orchestral score reading. Now, if you know bass clef, which I really recommend getting the time to know, it's quite similar if you notice here, because the lowest note in bass clef on the lines would be G, but instead it's F, so you can just think of it that all notes have been moved down one from their values. It is important to remember, if you were to play these notes, it would not sound like the notes in bass clef because they are an octave higher. And I will get into octaves in a different video on a later time, but if you want to get some context about it, you can look it up. So here are our lines: F, A, C, E, and finally G. And I had a difficult time coming up with the acronym for this, as well as the spaces, which are G, B, D, and F. So finally, I just came up with the acronym Force All Cows to Eat Grass. For this one, you really just gotta ignore the two, which you should have figured out by now is not a actual note that we use. Yeah, it doesn't really correlate to the alphabet, so it's a little confusing, honestly. And why did I capitalize eat? And I had to come up with something that used good boy, so it's good boys don't fail. A little bit harsh, maybe, but it works as an acronym, so I wanted to go over something that I realized that I hadn't fully covered in the previous section. So we're going to talk about sharps and flats real quick. So basically what a sharp and flat is you have to think about notes. And I like to use a keyboard. So I'm going to go ahead and show you with a keyboard as well. But so you have this note, and I'm going to let you figure out what this note is because we've talked about it, so it's practice. And so sometimes there might be a sign that looks like a B. And so this sign is called a flat. So if you were to think about this, a flat is called a half step above the note. And there's half steps, and there's also whole steps. So I'm going to give you an example. An example of a whole step would be the notes D and E. So these notes are a whole step away from each other, and I'll get into why in a second. I am next going to talk about our sharps. So we have this note here. Also going to let you figure out what note this is. And we could also have this hashtag looking sign. And so that is called a sharp. And so that's also a half step up from the note. And so this is why. So a whole step is 2 half steps. So we go from D to D flat, which is 1 half step. And sorry, not D flat, D sharp. So we go from D to D sharp, and from D sharp to E, which is 2 halves. And as you know, 2 halves make a whole. And so that's just a little quick overview about that. That's all for today's video. I am always open to making videos about anything that anyone has questions about, so just comment that below. And thank you so much for watching my video. Have a good day.